Hi, and welcome to the Design Find the podcast. Here we'll be interviewing women in the design field and finding out about their journey and their opportunities now in the design field. Today we have Jessica Tan, and she's going to be sharing with us her design and student fashion, and also going to Parsons. So, Jessica, welcome.
Hi, thank you so much for having me here.
Is this your first podcast?
It is actually, so I'm a little bit nervous, but hopefully it goes well.
It's just like a nice fluid conversation. So what's like an introduction, little short bio to you so the listeners can know?
Yeah, so I originally grew up in Hong Kong and attended the Hong Kong International School. And from a very young age, I've always been really into more of the creative fields, whether that be fashion design or architecture and things like that. And so when I was entering my senior year of high school, I really realized that my passion really did lie in fashion design itself. And so I think for me, design has always been a way for me to creatively express myself. And so going to Parsons and learning about the different facets of design, whether it be designing sustainably or designing with human-centered design in mind, or creating things that serve a purpose or have a function, that to me has always fueled me and my sort of passions. And I think as a human, I've always been drawn to the idea of helping other people. And to me, fashion is a way that you can reach multiple people. And that's why I wanted to go into the design sphere and combine my creativity with also purpose. And that's why I've kind of gotten here on my fashion journey.
That's great. It's nice to hear how passionate about you are, and like the actual message behind it. It's not like, oh, I want to make pretty clothes. You actually have a purpose, which I really like. So what do you think your like vibe in terms of fashion design is, or like what's your style? What are your colors? What is like something you gravitate towards making?
Yeah, I've definitely always been really interested in designing women's ready-to-wear specifically. Over the course of my time at Parsons, I've had the amazing opportunity to branch out and to design for people of different, body types and different abilities and needs. But I think at my core, I'm really interested in melding kind of geometric architectural styles with everyday wear, and that's what my sort of niche is. In terms of my design aesthetic, I really love neutral tones such as black, white, gray, beiges, but also I'm not afraid to add a splash of color in here and there as well.
Well, so ready to wear, that's just like normal street clothes.
Yeah, so I think with my designs, definitely more wearable, everyday kind of functional clothing. I try to design with use in mind, again, trying to be mindful about the environmental impact of my clothes. But in terms of also the companies that I've chosen to intern for, such as Monse or Proenza Schooler, it's slightly elevated higher end. So not necessarily like streetwear, but really just dressing the everyday working woman.
Well, how do you make the clothes? Is there like a workshop in Parsons, or do you go to where's like a factory, or what do you do?
Yeah, so my passion in fashion design really lies within technical like patterning and design. So I actually choose to sew all of my clothes myself. The really exciting thing over the pandemic too is we got to utilize software such as Clo 3D, which is a 3D design and modeling software for fashion specifically. So that was really interesting to see how fashion is moving into more digital spaces as well. But at Parsons, we're definitely trained technically as well, learning how to even sew basic seams and then taking that into a more high fashion approach.
Amazing. So, like, what's a store that gives you inspiration, or like, you like draws your eye and you're like, oh, I want to create something like that?
I honestly, in terms of inspiration for my collections, that's very different from the inspiration that I dress with, I guess. In terms of the inspiration for my collections, I try to I'm someone who's very drawn to architecture, sort of like I mentioned before. So I really like to, even whether it be walking around New York City or looking through my archive of photos from other cities, even just growing up in Hong Kong too, buildings have always caught my eye. And I think that the juxtaposition of the more organic with the rigid forms that happens within architecture is really inspiring to me. Definitely, I also do like to look at other brands to see what they have done and take some inspiration from there. I think the difficulty as a designer is trying to balance inspiration versus like plagiarism, and obviously you don't want to go down that plagiarism route. But brands that I find really intriguing are companies such as Monse, which was started by the creative directors of Oscar de la Renta. I was very lucky to be able to intern with them previously, but I love their whole deconstructed geometric, architecturally inspired silhouettes. In addition to Monse, I really love Iris Van Herpen. Iris Van Herpen's an incredible designer who melds 3D printing and technology with her designs, and she produces some really interesting silhouettes that kind of push the boundaries of what is wearable fashion. And I also, of course, love looking at archive or vintage Alexander McQueen's incredible designer. I also, yeah, I had the opportunity to hold some of his old clothes yesterday and I was freaking out. But also looking at archive Balenciaga, Dior, Chanel. I think there's a lot of technical and design techniques that they use that are really incredible to see translated into the modern day.
I think it's super cool how everything comes back. And it's like you
Oh,
see it.
definitely.
Like even if I look at like what my mom used to wear, everything like comes back, everything's the same, which I really like. And also makes you seem like, oh, I should just keep everything because one day I'll need it again.
That's what I like to tell myself, but then I end up hoarding a lot of clothes.
For sure. How do you manage? Because obviously you're in the design field. Do you have to like wear really nice clothes and everything to Parsons? Because it's like, come on, you're a fashion designer.
It's really open-ended. I would say in terms of the general crowd of fashion students at Parsons, people do tend to dress pretty well, but everyone expresses themselves so differently. And I think that's the beauty about fashion too. I definitely change up my style every day I show up to class. Like some days I'm in a very athleisure look and other days I'll be in head to toe, like leather jacket, like chunky leather boots. It completely depends on the day. And it's just a really fun way to express myself. And I've never really tied myself to one look. So
That's great. You mentioned you're really into architecture. How do you decide like which path you want to go for? Because see, like, how do you know which one's for you? Like, how to like differentiate between the like different design fields? No.
I think as well, when I was younger, I always loved fashion. And for me, architecture came in later. But what I had to really distinguish is though architecture informs a lot of my designs and I am inspired by it, I don't necessarily have a passion or a love for creating designs for architecture. It's more so something that sort of fuels my love for fashion design.
So it's like an
So
inspiration, but you're not.
yeah, it's definitely much more of an inspiration point. I don't think I could see myself designing buildings anytime soon. But I think the most important thing in terms of deciding where to go within your design career is what you feel sort of challenges you in a positive way and you feel so there's this thing in kind of psychology called like the state of flow where you're creatively or where you not necessarily creatively but where you feel challenged but you're able to meet those challenges and it's a state where you feel a lot of like time goes by really really quickly and you feel like you're having fun. And for me, the one place I really always felt that was when I was doing fashion design. I would be sucked into this kind of time warp. And all of a sudden, like 6 hours would pass by and I would look up and it would be night, but I was just designing the whole time. Yeah.
It's really cool that you're so passionate about something. So, like, what stage do you describe yourself now in terms of the design field? I know you're in university now. So like what are your next steps? What are other things you've done while also being at university to kind of like feed this passion?
Yeah, so I'm currently actually in my last year, so I'm in the midst of designing my thesis collection. For those who aren't so familiar with the Parsons curriculum, basically your first year is really about exploring all aspects of design, whether that be wood shop making or learning how to laser cut, um, technical like sketching skills. But as you progress through your time at the school, it becomes more and more focused on your major specifically, and thesis is a year-long class where you are able to creatively pursue whatever you want within fashion design and develop a collection based off of what you're inspired by, and that's the only prompt. So over the next few months, I hope to finish my collection. I'm also currently interning part-time as well, so I think that's an incredible way for students to gain hands-on industry experience. I highly recommend, if you're in any design field, or not even just design, but any career field, interning will really give you a good understanding of what the industry is really like. And so that's what I have been doing. And then hopefully after graduation, I will land a job within the fashion industry. Yeah.
Sure you will. But what is your major or what is your like thesis about?
Yeah, so I'm in fashion design for women's wear. That's my, I guess, my major concentration. And the area I'm in is with collections. So there are multiple different pathways, whether it be product design, which is more accessories, or designing to change like fashion systems, or learning more about textile and materiality. But mine is a more general approach to fashion design, where we just create anywhere between 5 and 10 looks, maybe more, maybe less, depending on how many details you have. Right now, I am still finalizing my theme. I'm currently in the researching phase, but it's sort of centralized over the idea of emotional healing and grief, as well as an architectural approach to it.
That's amazing. Super cool
Yeah,
that you're able to do that.
thank you.
So what do you think your biggest achievement in the design field is?
I think the most rewarding experience I've had by far was probably my work last semester in collaboration with Special Olympics. Obviously, with the pandemic, it was very difficult to be able to have, it was very difficult to feel connected to others, especially living alone in a one-bedroom apartment in New York. I think it was really frustrating to not be able to use the studio, which is the hub for all fashion design students. But the exciting thing about it is through Zoom, we were able to connect with Special Olympics athletes in New York, as well as the photographer Nigel Barker, who helped with our critiques. And it was taking a very different approach to design. I think prior to last year, I definitely was drawn to the more aesthetic side of fashion. And not that there's anything wrong with wanting to make pretty clothes, but at the end of the day, when you look at the trajectory of like our planet and the environment and sustainability, and also taking into account the fact that not everybody is a size 2, 4, or 6 women's wear fashion figure, and not everybody is looking for one specific silhouette. I think it was really important for me as a designer to understand other people's needs and to design not just with the aesthetic in mind, but with the purpose in mind. And so I was able to collaborate with 2 different athletes, Sean Lester and Charlotte Meyer, and we were able to co-design and collaborate on a collection that they felt confident as athletes in. And that really changed my perspective on design as a designer.
That's amazing. So they actually wore this stuff around the Olympics or they like worked out in
uh,
them and trained in them?
Unfortunately, due to the pandemic, we weren't able to properly fit everything to them. While we were able to use Clo3D, which is a 3D design software on the laptop, the athletes themselves, due to pandemic restrictions, weren't able to wear the clothes. That being said, for New York Fashion Week this past August, they were able to produce a different version of the look that I created for one of the male athletes, as well as 2 other student designers. They produced their looks as well, and were able to shoot it for sort of social media and awareness campaign during Fashion Week, which was really
That's
exciting.
super exciting to like see your name up there and be like, I did it.
Oh, definitely. I think it was really surreal seeing my IGTV live post on the New York Fashion Week page.
Oh, that's so cool. Did you get to go to any New York Fashion Week shows?
Yeah, so I've currently over the past 6 months been, or five or 6 months, have been interning with Proenza Schoolers. So I got to work with them backstage, and it was really cool to see because I got to see like the collection from their inception and their original sketches, and then see it come to life and see models like Gigi Hadid walk in their clothes was pretty surreal.
It's amazing. That's like full circle because you're on the other, like you're on the design side of it, but you don't see like the. I'm sure there's so much that happens backstage and all the other all so much planning that we've no idea what happens.
The amount of work that goes into it is incredible. I think the lead up to the show for like a week and a half, we spent from 9 a.m. to 11 p.m. almost every day for a 7-minute show. And that's not including all the time beforehand when it comes to sketching and model, like fittings and everything. That's just show prep.
Oh my gosh, but I'm sure it's all worth it.
Oh, definitely. It gave me chills for sure.
Yeah. So I just want to ask more about like what obviously during the pandemic, most people have been like locked at home. How did that like shift what you design or what you wear? Obviously, people weren't wearing as nice clothes being stuck at home. So did you ever feel like, oh, maybe I'm switching up what I want to do or your like approach to design? I just want to see how like obviously that was a huge thing in everyone's life and how it's affected you in the design field.
I think just like thinking back to what I've said previously, don't get me wrong, though I do love fashion and I am very passionate about what I'm studying and what I produce, it doesn't mean that I don't struggle with it. I definitely have days where I'm like, oh my gosh, what am I doing? Why did I choose this career? Like I have no creative juices flowing. This is all going south. But I think during the pandemic, it was just really about taking a step back and being like, okay, what is fashion design at its core? Why do I like this? And that was what made me kind of take a step back and realize, oh, I'm designing for people. And that's what I love about it. Fashion has definitely changed aesthetically since the pandemic. I think we've been seeing a lot more athleisure and clothes that are more comfortable. I think, especially with a lot of corporate offices not going back in person, suits are, while they're like nice to look at, they're not as practical for everyday wear anymore. I don't think you'll be seeing businessmen or women in like tailored suits every single day at work anymore. I mean, even pre-pandemic, casual Fridays, like smart casual office wear has been changing. And I think for me, a challenge as a designer is to mesh my ideas with, again, what people want and need. So looking at, okay, how do I make a pair of leggings or track pants look aesthetically pleasing, but still maintain that level of comfort? And I think just learning how to incorporate those elements of comfort while still maintaining the tailored designs that I'm so drawn to has been like the challenge, but something that I've felt like I've started to see some success in.
Cool. So when you were stuck at home, how'd you do your classes? Because obviously it's not like just like a research, like, oh, I'm just going to write essays. Like you actually have to be very hands-on. So that must have been very difficult for Parsons to manage. Like, what did you guys do?
Yeah, so again, we used Clo 3D from the majority of our classes in design. And so just having that new learning curve of completely learning how to do everything you know how to do in person, but digitally was definitely a struggle. But also we did have the option to kind of supplement our Clo designs with technical hands-on design skills. So I did buy myself a sewing machine in the beginning of the pandemic, and I was like, all right, I guess this is something I'll have to invest in, but is going to be something that works out long term. So just trying to make the most out of the situation.
But I think it must have been cool, and obviously everything's moving more digital, to learn how to use all these digital platforms because you're for sure going to need it in the future.
Oh, definitely. I think it's so important to be, especially within an industry that changes so rapidly. I mean, if you just think about designers churning out at minimum four collections a year, that's hundreds and hundreds of looks. And for it to happen every single year, you have to have new inspiration, new technology, new techniques. So this is just a part of really the trajectory of fashion. So just having to be flexible with it is the most important thing.
Mhm. So moving more on like a personal level, what's something that people don't really know about you? But like obviously you're just like, oh, you're this cool like fashion designer at Parsons. What's some other stuff that like people may not know?
I
Like what's
guess
another
like,
passion of yours?
oh yeah,
What's like one of your
I think
life goals or something?
over the pandemic, I've definitely been a lot more into cooking. And I think that in itself is also a different art form I hadn't realized before. Because again, I didn't really have any family in New York. So through the pandemic, I would see like 2 friends every week. So it'd be like 5 days of literally just being alone. So I had a lot of time to myself. So I got really into cooking and fitness and just trying to be outdoors more. I think a lot of like a lot of my free time was spent going to Central Park or just walking around, and that also helped inform some of my designs as well. And that was it's cool to draw inspiration from places that aren't just the studio or indoors.
Last over the summer I was in New York City as well. And I went to like Central Park every morning. It was like there's such cool, especially I think coming from Hong Kong, there's such like variety of people, and I've been in Hong Kong for so long because like quarantine you can't be really travel. But I think just looking at all the different people and like so everyone kind of has a really interesting story that you don't really know about. Some people are on
Definitely.
like it was like a marathon run. Some people are going on like a picnic. Like it's really cool to see different people, and I don't know. I think it's like underrated how much nature New York City actually has.
Yeah, definitely. And then also since the pandemic, so pre-pandemic, my friends and I would literally just stay in the city every weekend and try to explore like the different food scenes and whatever.
Mhm.
But since the pandemic, we've been trying to get out of the city more often. And I didn't realize, but within an hour by train, you can be in the mountains and hiking. So that's what I've been doing. Like
Really?
I've been trying to do it once a month recently.
I feel like
We'll see
people who are
how long
in the city don't usually leave the city. Like, I
right?
think
Yeah.
that's their like
It is
mentality.
pretty embarrassing. I have not been to all 5 boroughs of the city yet. So kind of a fake New Yorker over
I think
here,
once you're
but
in Manhattan, people are like, they're like, okay, where else would I go?
right? Yeah.
I haven't
But
been to
definitely,
any of them.
yeah.
I don't think I've been to
Hopefully
Brooklyn.
Brooklyn, maybe. Maybe.
Brooklyn,
Yeah.
yeah, maybe. I drove through Queens to go to the airport. That was about it.
Okay, there you go. Progress. Yeah. So I've been trying to get out into the boroughs a little bit more frequently now, but not as much as I would like. I think it's really cool to kind of get out of the city and explore different things, try different activities. Yeah.
Mhm. So what do you think is the most underrated fashion trend or something you'd like to see more?
Oh my gosh. Uh, I don't know if there's like an underrated fashion trend I'd like to see more. Though I will say, I think something I've realized is that socks show a lot of personality. I think my favorite thing is to be people watching on the subway, and when you see like businessmen's like pants hike up a little bit and they have
That's
like pink
true.
polka dot socks. It's
True. It's
incredible.
always like the businessmen wearing suits and they have like pink and purple socks.
Exactly. Yeah. I think that's always really fun. I'm trying to think if there's anything that I would like to see more of. I think I know what I would like to see less of, if that's
What?
a more interesting answer. I think Crocs should die. I know that they're coming back, but I really I can't get behind the trend. Also apparently low-rise jeans are coming back, and I
They
think those should
are.
stay.
But high-waisted
I,
jeans is the best thing. I love them.
I
I've
know
never worn
exactly, right?
low-waisted.
I refuse to wear low-waisted jeans
But people
or
who wear them look really good. So, but it's like I can't get onto it.
the
I don't think
practicality.
I don't think it's flattering on me. But like I guess it depends
I
on
don't
what
think it's
people wear.
flattering or quote. I mean, I think you should wear whatever makes you feel comfortable. So flattering or not, if you feel great, that's
Yeah, I
awesome for
don't feel
you.
great.
But I think, yeah, for me, I don't feel great. And also just the practicality of it. Yeah, it might look cute when you're standing up, but when you're sitting down, that can't be comfortable. Just
That's
digging into
true.
your skin.
Like I'm
Yeah.
so happy high-waisted jeans are popular.
Still a thing.
Everything's
Yeah.
high-waisted. Like I love it. I think I'm taking it for granted.
And then I think the last trend that I really think should go is those little Jacquemus tiny little purses that can't even fit like an
Oh no.
AirPod in them. I don't understand it. I mean, I guess if you have the money, sure, but at the same time, it's
Yeah.
like,
You could have
what's
a
the point?
small purse, but at least be able to fit like your phone in it. I think that's the minimum.
That's the benchmark, is you have to be able to fit your phone, because who's really leaving their home
Well,
without a
I
phone?
think for you, like you must see this a lot, but why is it such a thing that women's clothes don't have pockets?
Oh my gosh, it's
Like
yeah.
like the days that I have pockets, like I actually have pockets, I'm like, whoa, this is so cool. But then like guys are like, oh, every day we have pockets.
I try to design with pockets as much as I can. I personally think it's a little bit of a conspiracy theory, but I think that brands purposely design without pockets so that they can sell their bags. But I don't know if that's
I
true.
believe that.
Yeah.
Because everything if I had like pockets deep enough, I don't need a bag. Like, what do you need it for?
Yeah, that's why men can stuff everything in their pockets. It's incredible.
Everything. Like their pockets go down to their knees. Like they're
Oh,
really deep.
exactly. And the fact that they put everything in their front pockets too, I don't understand that. I don't think I have a single pair
No,
of
I
pants.
can't do back pockets. Back pockets, someone's gonna steal them. You have to put everything in your front pocket.
You use the front pocket?
Yeah,
Oh,
I
interesting.
never use the back pocket. Someone's gonna steal your phone. You have to put it in the front pocket.
My issue is just nothing fits in the front pocket. But yeah, that's what I'm trying to
Oh,
change that with my
that's
designs, hopefully.
so what is something you want to see more in the future of the design world?
I think within the fashion industry, there's definitely a lot of greenwashing. So brands saying that they're more sustainable than they really are, taking like shorter steps towards sustainability than they should be. And yeah, it definitely can sometimes be redundant to hear people say, oh, we want sustainability, but no, what does sustainability actually look like? It's making sure that your clothes have longevity. It's not something you buy for like one wear or for extremely cheap. It should be something made to last. It also, I think, within the fashion industry, there's, a lot of waste. And so learning how to choose clothes that obviously I think people want to feel trendy or like in style, but at the same time too, something that's more like, I think I would like to see more kind of classic pieces come in, pieces that you can pass down to even your children. And then also looking from an environmental aspect, how are the clothes being dyed? Who's actually producing them? What are the conditions that it's being produced in? I
I
think these are all
remember.
very
Do you know
questions.
Reformation? Their whole thing is like, oh, we're sustainable. But I watched this video that all their clothes are made in like Vietnam and Cambodia in like a factory,
Yeah.
and they're like their clothes are really expensive.
Yeah. So I think it's a lot easier said than done, because the
Mhm.
overhead and the costs for truly sustainable fashion is a lot more. But I think that's because the public has been so accustomed to seeing clothes for like $10 or less. But if you think about minimum wage, for example, in New York City itself, minimum wage is $15 an hour. How is it possible that you're buying, clothes off of Shein for $3, $4? It's because somewhere something's being cut, whether it be like shortcuts with like in terms of environment, or not paying workers fair wages, or like giving them uninhabitable conditions.
Mhm.
So really just focusing on making the whole system more sustainable is
I think
be
I'm
a big.
guilty of this too, but it's like when you see something, like I'm in Hong Kong. If something's less than $100, you're like, whoa. But when you actually think about it, what did they do to make it less than $100? It's like really bad. And we've done a lot of things in school about, how bad the fashion industry is for the world. But are you still like, are you like on a no, I don't buy any fast fashion, or like, how do you know you're mixed? Like, how do you kind of find that without feeling guilty?
I mean, I think it would be very hypocritical of me to say I don't subscribe to fast fashion, because the reality is I am a college student. I don't
Mhm.
make income as a college student. Um, so I definitely have shopped fast fashion. I think the most important thing though is, when I do buy fast fashion, it's clothing that I know I will wear for a long time. So I try to think of, okay, how many wears will I get out of this? If it's less than like 20, absolutely not buying it for sure. And then just minimizing the amount that I do purchase. I think a good question to ask yourself while you're shopping is, do I really love this? And if you don't, then it's something you just like, or if you're on the fence about, then it's not something you really need to have.
I think people just consumerism at its finest. People just like the thrill, and once you're buying stuff, you're like, oh, I can buy this other shirt and then this. But like in reality, how often do people actually wear
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So, kind of ending, what is your biggest advice to anyone wanting to enter the fashion world? Anyone who wants to pursue fashion design? I know you went to Parsons, so obviously, like, you're trained in it. But yeah, anyone maybe like younger than you who wants to get into it?
I think my advice to anyone who's trying to get into the fashion industry is to just try it out. I think whether it be through summer programs or designing and sketching and sewing on your own, the best way to find out if you love it is to spend time doing it, just like with anything else. It can be easy to think, oh, it's just clothes, it's quick, it's fun, it's pretty to look at. But at the end of the day, just like any other career, there are a lot of challenges within the fashion industry, and it's not a very industry. I think looking back to when I was in high school, I had a very idealistic view of it, and it's easy to see the top designers and be like, wow, I can design and become rich and famous really quickly. And that's not the case for 99.9% of designers. So you have to be willing to put in the hard work. And through exploring on your own, you'll really find out if that's something you love dedicating your time to. Because at the end of the day, it's something you have to sort of live, breathe, and eat. I mean, my friends and I would be in the studios, well, pre-pandemic, in the studios until 2-3 a.m. and get in at like 8 a.m. the next morning. So it's definitely a labor of love, but if it's something you're truly interested and passionate about, it's enjoyable the whole way through, even with all of like the
Yeah,
ups and downs.
great words of wisdom. So, where do you see yourself in like 10 years?
I'm not sure. I think that vision for myself is changing a little bit. I don't think I would want to open my own label within the next 10 years. I would love to design for other designers because I think there's a lot to be learned and a lot of knowledge to be gained by learning from other people. But hopefully still within the fashion industry, still designing and still loving every minute of it.
So, to end, what are your socials? Where can people see you and find out more about you?
Yeah, so my portfolio website is jessicajwtan.com, and my Instagram is also jessicajwtan.
Great. Thank you so much.